blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done. So amid the conflict, whether great or small, do not be discouraged, God is over all. Count your many blessings, angels will attend. Help and comfort give you to your journey's end. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, see what God hath done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your many blessings, see what God hath done.
Blue skies and rainbows and sunbeams from heaven are what I can see. When my Lord is living in me, I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part. Tall mountains, green valleys, the beauty that surrounds me, all makes me aware of the one who made it all. I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part. Green grass and flowers, the blooming in springtime, all works of the Master I live for each day. I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part. I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus, for it is the power that saves us today. I know that Jesus is well and alive today. He makes his home in my heart. Nevermore will I be all alone, since he promised me that we never would part.
Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Thou art the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me after thy will.
If the skies above you are gray, you are feeling so blue. If your cares and burdens seem great all the whole day through, there's a silver lining that shines in the heavenly land. Look by faith and see it, my friend. Trust in His promises, friend. Sing and be happy, press along to the goal. Trust in Him who leads you. He will keep your soul. Let all be faithful. Look to Jesus and Him and pray. Lift your voice and praise Him in song. Sing and be happy today. Often we are troubled and tired, sick with sorrow and pain. There are others living in sin, blessed with earthly gain. Take new courage, we cannot tell what tomorrow may bring. When the dark clouds vanish away, then your heart truly can sing. Sing and be happy, press along to the goal. Trust in Him who leads you. He will keep your soul. Let all know where you be faithful. Look to Jesus and Him and pray. Lift your voice and praise Him in song. Sing and be happy today. Oft we fail to see the rainbow up in heaven's fair sky. When it seems the fortunes of earth frown and pass us by, there are things we know that are worth more than silver and gold. If we hope and trust Him each day, we shall have pleasure untold. Sing and be happy, press along to the goal. Trust in Him who leads you. He will keep your soul. Let all know where you be faithful. Look to Jesus and Him and pray. Lift your voice and praise Him in song. Sing and be happy today.
All right, good morning, everyone. Glad to see that you're all here. Glad to hear us all conversing and fellowshipping, if you will. This is the first Sunday of a new quarter, and I'll be teaching. As I mentioned last time, the first lesson in a series, I always have a little bit of nerves, right? I was telling my daughter this morning, if I don't have the nerves, then I'm probably going to get really concerned. So I'm excited for the ability to be before you, and I'm optimistic that both you and I will be able to get something from this course of study. What I've selected as the topic of study is the life of David, and what I aim to do is not necessarily just focus in very targeted on David and just flesh out all of his life, but more so take different events that happen in his life and use those as opportunities for us to identify what he did well, what he could have done better, help us see who God is through this particular story, but then also see who we are and how we can be better as well. And so that's the objective as we go through this course of study. So hopefully it'll be beneficial for you and for me. One of the things that I do as part of my life is I have a job. And part of that responsibility that I have is I'm a leader at my job. And so I get the honor of leading a team. And whether they're individuals that are on my team or if it's other individuals that come by and just simply want some advice, oftentimes what I get is questions about career development. How do I get to the next level? What should I do if I want to aspire to this level? And most of the time, I simply tell them, number one, thanks for making it known, because one of the first things you have to do is let people know what are your aspirations, what are your desires, what do you like, what do you not like. But then specifically how to get there. The only advice that I can honestly offer them is do your job. You can go to school and you can learn a lot, and you can network and you can market yourselves. But if you don't do your job, then no one will want to put you in that position. No one will want you on their team because you aren't capable of getting the job done. And so one of the things that I want us to pick up about David is he's a person that gets results. And these results manifest themselves in many ways, and sometimes unexpected ways. And that's one of the things that I want to look at today is one of the unexpected ways that David's ability to get stuff done manifested itself. And what was one of the surprising outcomes that he ran into? And with that, I want us to ask ourselves this question. What do people say about me? How do people see me, and what do people say about me? We're going to be in 1 Samuel. 1 Samuel chapter 16, and we'll pick up in verse number 14, but I'll give you a quick recap of where we are in the Bible story. So we are in the period of the kings because King Saul is currently on the throne. And what that means is that we're well past Abraham and the promise God made to Abraham about him having this really big family or this kingdom. We're past Moses, we're past the 40 years in the wilderness, they've entered Canaan. They didn't necessarily conquer it like they were supposed to. They've had the period of the judges where they would rebel against God. They'd fall into some level of punishment, and they were oppressed by their enemies, and then God would send judges to deliver them. They've asked for a king, and now Saul is king. And Saul, through his series of ups and downs and downs and downs, has been rejected by God. And in the early part of chapter 16, what we see is that David has now been anointed king. But he's not king yet. And so we pick up in verse number 14. The text says, "Now the Spirit of Yahweh departed from Saul, and a harmful spirit from Yahweh tormented him. And Saul's servant said to him, 'Behold, a harmful spirit from God is tormenting you. Let our Lord now command your servants who are before you to seek out a man who is skillful in playing the lyre, and when the harmful spirit from God is upon you, he will play it, and you will be well.' So Saul said to his servants, 'Provide for me a man who can play well, and bring him to me.' One of the young men answered, 'Behold, I've seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite who is skillful in playing, a man of valor, a man of war, prudent in speech, and a man of good presence, and Yahweh is with him.' Therefore Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, 'Send me David your son, who is with the sheep.' And Jesse took a donkey laden with bread and a skin of wine, and a young goat, and sent them by David his son to Saul. And David came to Saul and entered his service. And Saul loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, 'Let David remain in my service, for he has found favor in my sight.' And whenever the harmful spirit from God was upon Saul, David took the lyre and played it with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the harmful spirit departed from him. Here in this text, we see a situation that's happening. There's a lot of things that are described in this text, and one of the things that I think the author is trying to do overall is the author is trying to show us a decline from Saul and his walk with God and the ascension of David and his walk with God. If we had read the verse before, verse 13, we started in 14. If I had read 13, what we would have seen is the final comments about David being anointed. It says, then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him being David, in the midst of his brothers. And the Spirit of Yahweh rushed upon David from that day forward. And so we see this beginning of David, at least from the text. This is the first time we're hearing of David. And what we see is that he's a shepherd and he's anointed and the Spirit of God rushes upon him. Now juxtapose that with King Saul. Verse 14, now the Spirit of Yahweh departed Saul, and a harmful spirit from Yahweh tormented him. Again, ascension of David, and then the decline of Saul. And through the text that we just read about David and of Saul being tormented and David being recommended for this position, what we're seeing is the character of David. And what we're going to see is the beginning of David's success in the service of Saul and also before the Lord in all of his purposes. And so the interesting thing that I find out is in this situation that we were reading about, the situation where Saul is now being tormented by this harmful spirit, there's a new job that just opened up. This situation is demanding that a need be met. Let's read it again. Verse 16, let our Lord now command your servants who are before you to seek out a man who is skillful in playing the lyre, and when the harmful spirit from God is upon you, he will play it and you will be well. And Saul thought, yes, this is a really good idea. And so he says, yes, go find such a person. Sometimes needs just arise out of nowhere. Life circumstances creates needs for people you don't even know in places you have never been or you have never expected. And yet and still that need exists, and the reality is that need must be met. Let me ask you a question. What happens if this specific job is not staffed?
So it gets worse and more evil or whatever.
Saul gets worse, and that evil spirit torments him more and more. What happens if Saul, who is the king, is continually in a state of torment and he's out of his right mind? He can't rule.
And the people suffer.
And what?
The people suffer.
And the people suffer. This is a serious situation. This is not simply, okay, yeah, he's going through something. No, the king is going through something. He doesn't have his wits about him. He's volatile, he's hostile. And when you're in that type of state, you probably don't rule very well. There will be stories as we continue on where this spirit is influencing Saul and he lashes out. One time he picks up the spear and throws it at David. Another time he picks it up and throws it at his son. Can you imagine this person leading the nation? Another nation somehow slights him, or he perceives a slight. Now you're off to war. There needs to be a decision made about how to support the people, but he's in the right mind state. And now the nation is in decline. This is a very necessary job that needs to be staffed. The reason why I bring that up is because maybe it's not the king, but maybe it's somebody in your life that you know. Maybe it's you. There are all sorts of jobs that need to be staffed. And when the work doesn't get done, not only is that person harmed by it, but all of us are worse because that job is not getting done. So, serious job, it's needful that it be solved. Well, sometimes it takes a long time to figure out what to do about it. In this case, it sounds like someone already has the solution. Let's keep reading. Verse 18 says, one of the young men answered, behold, I've seen a son of Jesse, the Bethlehemite, who is skillful in playing, a man of valor, a man of war, prudent in speech, a man of good presence, and Yahweh is with him. It's so interesting. This is a job opening. It has, if you'll give me a second to bring this in the 21st century, this is happening at the staff meeting. The job hasn't been posted on Indeed. It's not on LinkedIn yet. And yet in the staff meeting, someone says, I know a guy. And he says, there's this guy, and let me tell you about his credentials. He is a brave man. Well, number one, he can play the lyre because that's what we need him to do. So he can do that, and he plays really well. But he's a brave, courageous boy. And he's a warrior. And he'll fit in the royal courts because he talks well. You know, he presents himself well. He's handsome, and Yahweh's with him. He's checking box after box after box. As a matter of fact, there was only one box put on there. And this young man who's actually recommending David says, not only does he check the main box, he's got all of these other intangibles that we really like and we really need. And I'm going to come back to that in just a little bit. Did David apply for this job? He did. I'm sorry?
God chose him.
God chose him. Absolutely right. David doesn't have to apply for this job. Someone is recommending him for the job. This is what they say about David when David's not even in the room. They say he's skillful in playing, he's a man of valor, he's a man of war, he's prudent in speech, he's a man of good presence, and the Lord is with him. Let me ask you a question. Situations to where we need a guy. We don't even have to post it. We know exactly who it is. Does that happen today? Does this situation really happen? I'm sorry? Sometimes it does. Can someone think of an example where this happens? And it doesn't have to be that I'm literally trying to hire someone. Think of it from the perspective of there is a need. I know who it is. What are some examples where this might happen?
Well, in the church, we've had needs, and somebody says, you know what, so-and-so might just be the perfect one for that job.
Mm-hmm. The comment was, in the church, we might have a need, and so says, you know what, such and such is perfect for that job. I think that happens. Where else?
Just in life at home, things that happen, emergencies that come up with hot water heated bread or plumbing, whatever.
Yeah, emergencies around the house. Something goes wrong, and you're like, oh, I know who I'll recommend to help get that done. It might even be that it's not a business. You just say, oh, the neighbor around the corner, he knows how to do that. Why don't you give him a call? People get recommended all the time for these type of things. Sometimes it's just simply you're on the job and you're going through something, and someone says, you know, such and such, he's dealing with that. You should talk to him. You should talk to her. These are all examples in life where there's a need, a job opened up, and we just refer people. And this happens all the time. But let me ask a question. How does David get referred? Why does the young man refer David?
Somebody else knew about him.
It's not just somebody else knew about him. The text says, behold, I have seen. This is a personal recommendation firsthand. This is not hearsay. This man knows for a fact who David is. He's heard David play. He's seen his bravery. He's heard him speak. He's seen how handsome he is. And through his experiences, he said, this is not normal. It must be that God is with him. And this goes back to what I tell people that ask me for advice on how to advance their career. Do your job. David is a shepherd. His job is to watch over the sheep, whether it be good times and there's peace, or there be bad times and there's danger. And because David is doing his job, somewhere along the way, he's using the gifts that God has given him, and he's delivering results. And that comes back to us. With the gifts that we have and the tasks that are put in front of us, are we using our gifts? Are we delivering results? And again, what are people saying about us? When it comes down to some of those tasks that we just talked about, will I be recommended? If it had have been me living at the time, would that conversation involve my name? I'll share with you an example, and this is not a brag, but this is real life. And this is why this kind of jumped off the page at me, because literally I've been here. When we came to this congregation, we were just 1 year back in the state of Texas. I say back in the state of Texas because previously we had spent 10 in California. Now, here's how I ended up in California. I worked in manufacturing, and my job was outsourced. My responsibility at that time was, hey, help transfer the factory to Singapore and help train up the staff over there. Well, by the time the job is done, my job it's gone. It's relocated. Well, during that whole process, I ended up doing some work for one of our sites in California, doing similar work. And the director of operations calls me one day. It's a phone call out of the blue. I'm thinking it's work related. And it kind of is. But he says, hey, listen, I got this job. And he tells me about it, and he says, I want you to apply for it. Now, mind you, I didn't know the job existed. I hadn't applied for it. But because he had seen the work that I had done, and because of the recommendation of my managers, several levels up, he recommended me. I was recommended for the job, and he wanted me to apply. And seeing as how I wasn't busy with anything else, I applied for the job, and I ended up in California. And what I would say is that I've been with my company for 20 years, and I think I counted up somewhere around 14 different responsibilities in 20 years. I'm not job hopping, they're just all within the same one. But there's only been a handful of those where I actually sought out and was like, I'd love that responsibility, I'd like that new role. Most of the time it was like, hey, Birdow, here's what we need you to go do now. And then they would just, someone had a conversation in the back and they said, I know a guy. And the question we have to ask ourselves is that same thing. When it comes to whatever we put our hands to do, what are people going to say about us? What will we be recommended for? You know, some people are recommended for chaos. I mean, we laugh, But you know who that person is. Like if you wanted real chaos, you know who to invite. If you want mess to be spread, you know who to tell. But if you want something done, you know who to talk to too. If you need something done in this building, there are some specific names we'll call on. And the question on the table is, am I one of those? And we were talking about some of those things. You know, sometimes somebody just needs somebody they can speak to confidentially. I need a confidant. Well, the question is, David, are you a confidant? Do people view you as a confidant? Sometimes people just need a shoulder to cry on. I'm crying, you're listening. Not that I'm crying and you're trying to share your problems too. I just need a shoulder to cry on. Are they able to cry on my shoulder? Sometimes we need Bible class teachers. Does your name come up? Sometimes we're looking for elders or we're looking for deacons. Does your name come up? We are needing people to help out all over the place, food pantry, whatever the case may be. Sometimes we just need someone to be a prayer warrior. Are you thought of in that light? These are all very necessary, needful jobs. And going back to the King Saul situation, if they are not done, we are worse off. Think of each one of these, whether it's individually or collectively. If that role doesn't get filled, someone and collectively the body of Christ is worse for it. And so it's very important that we are able to use our skills and that we're able to move forward. Paul said in Romans 12, verses 6, he says, having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let's use them. A very simple but powerful statement. He says, God gave each and every one of us gifts, so let's use them. And so the outcome of this story is that David was successful. If we continue reading verse number 19, it says, therefore Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, send me David your son, who is with the sheep. And Jesse took a donkey laden with bread and a skin of wine and a young goat, and sent them by David his son to Saul. And David came to Saul and entered his service. And Saul loved him greatly, and he became his armor bearer. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, let David remain in my service, for he has found favor in my sight. And whenever the harmful spirit from God was upon Saul, David took the lyre and played it with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the harmful spirit departed from him. David obtained success. It says that Saul loved him greatly, and not only was he the person in the royal court that was supposed to play the harp, he also gave him another job. See, be careful if you do a job real well, you might end up with a few more responsibilities. And that's okay, because I believe that God starts blessing us. And see, how am I doing? This might be dangerous, but this is a detour I wasn't expecting to go on, but I'm going to do it because I think it's important. When God blesses us with gifts, I look at it like you treat your retirement planning. For those of you that use like the stock market for your retirement planning, what you're constantly doing is you're seeing which one gives you the best rate of return, and you adjust appropriately. Now, maybe you're not moving them day by day, but you adjust. And so I believe the same is true with God. When God sees that there's someone who takes true advantage of the blessings that he gives, he invests even further. If you think about the story of the parable of the talents, he starts out, he gives one person 1, he gives another person 3, another person, I think it's 5. Did I get those numbers right? I think I got that right. What happens with the person with 3? They end up ultimately with how many? 6. What happens to the person that had 5? They end up with what? 10. They got more because they used what God gave them. And the person who had one, who refused to use it, how many did he end up with? Saul had the Spirit of God taken from him. David, who's a shepherd, who's been in the field tending to the sheep to the best of his ability, is using his skill. And what does he end up with? Everything. He's the king. And when he comes into Saul's service, he says, here's what I want you to do. I want you to be yourself, which means I want you to talk well, speak well, and I want you to play the harp well. And just by doing that, being himself and doing his job, all right, now I need you to be the armor bearer too. And that's what happens. And that's okay. I promise you, Ross will put you to work. The elders will put you to work. You come in here and show one talent and a desire to do more, you're going to end up with more. And that's okay. And so he ended up with more responsibility, and he was successful because he does the job he was assigned using his gifts. The preacher says in Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 10, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all of your might. There's another thing I want to pull out of this particular passage, and that is how and why Saul loves him so much. Why do you think Saul is so keen on keeping David in his service?
Because he did well when David served him.
He did well when David served him. Anyone else?
I think it's pleasant to be around.
Pleasant to be around. We all like pleasant people.
He had a good personality. That's why he spoke well.
Yes. Anyone else? There's a hint a few chapters before of the type of people that Saul was wanting in his life at this moment in time. 1 Samuel 14:52. There was hard fighting against the Philistines all the days of Saul. And when Saul saw any strong man or any valiant man, he attached himself to him. There are fits. It isn't just that you have talents, you have skills. I believe that God will also mate you with someone that's right for you. And David was perfect for Saul. Remember earlier, the job was only asking for someone who played the harp well. But what did he end up with? Sure, he can play the harp well, but this guy's courageous. He's brave. And he's a warrior. And the text doesn't really tell us how we know he's a warrior. This is actually before Goliath. But apparently, David had already been demonstrating himself to be a warrior. And this young man knew about it. And then, of course, he's good in speech, so he fits in the royal court. He's handsome, and God is with him. This guy was perfect for Saul. This is exactly what he's looking for. Saul's looking for big warriors, right? Why? Because we got a lot of fighting to do. And David checks all the marks. I believe that there is a job out there that if you're willing to use your skills, you check all the marks. There's someone that God is waiting to mate you up with. They have a need, and you fit that need. You fit all the marks. And the scriptures, they're just full of these examples. In my lesson, we can't even go through them all. If we talk about giving, oftentimes we're in 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and chapter 9. That passage, 8 and 9, I feel like I say this all the time. I just love that passage. I don't know which passage I don't love. But that passage is so powerful, 8 through 9. Paul starts out and he says, I don't want some people to be eased and others burdened. Well, what do you mean? Well, there's a problem going on. There's famine happening in one place and, well, kind of surplus happening in another. He says, but so that there might be equality, that your abundance might fit their abundance. Wait, what are you talking about? They're in famine. Yeah, they got an abundance of need. and you have an abundance of supply, you're the perfect match. They have a need, you have a supply, we'll just put you two together. Because you got way more than you need. And then he quotes out of Exodus, and talking about the manna from above, he said, therefore no man had no lack. He said, gosh, I can't quote it now. Sorry, I can't quote it, I'm sorry. But he basically makes a reference to manna coming from above. He that gathered a lot had no excess, and who gathered a little had no lacking. I didn't quote that well. But the point being is that everybody had exactly what they needed. And in this particular case, the need is being met by someone who has a supply. Where am I going with all this? You have your perfect match. They're there, they're somewhere. And God is more than willing to send them to you. If one, you're using the gifts that you have. David had been using his gifts, and someone noticed it. And when the time came, they said, I know a guy. And so David was then allowed to use his gifts. He used it well, and then he gained more responsibility or more blessings. And I believe the same is true and capable for you and I. Thoughts on that? Comments, questions?
You know, sometimes even when you're picked out by somebody to refer you to somebody that has a need that you have now, you also bring your needs with you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That same opportunity will present itself to somebody else.
Yeah.
So it's
The comment is that sometimes you're helping someone, but you have needs yourself. And it just might be that that person can meet your needs, or someone else, or they refer you to someone else, and there's this energy and this synergy that's created, and it just keeps giving and giving and giving, because we all are using the gifts that we have. We're all being blessed, and we're all blessing others. Other thoughts on this? Okay. There is something else I want to share with you. I want to talk a little bit about David. I do want to spend the time and spend just a few minutes and talk about David and a little bit about his character and who he is, right? I think David is an incredibly impressive person. I think he's incredibly blessed too. David's gifts. So just real quick, what type of talents do we know about David that he possessed?
played the lyre.
He played the lyre, right? Good. So he's a musician. What else would you say?
Warrior.
He's a warrior. Confidant, yes. He was very confident.
Pretty good shepherd.
He was a really good shepherd. Yes.
He obviously respected authority.
He respected authority.
Because he was probably the lowly person in his family to be the
Yeah.
shepherd.
He was the shepherd. He was the lowest person, the youngest, right? So he definitely respected authority. What other? Yes.
He had to be trustworthy.
He was trustworthy.
That armor is a position of immense trust.
Absolutely. Poetry. He's a poet. He wrote several psalms, right? He's obviously a warrior, right? I want to pick on warrior for just a second, right? So he's a man of war. God is with him. And so with that, it's very interesting because if we look at this passage, this one here is a chapter later when he's about to fight Goliath. Notice what he says. And Saul is saying, no, you can't go to war. You can't go to war. Goliath, he's been a warrior since he was a little boy. You can't do this. David says, your servant used to keep the sheep for his father, and when there came a lion or bear, and a lamb took a lamb from the flock, I went after him, struck him, and delivered it out of his mouth. And if it arose against me, I caught it by its beard and struck him and killed him. Your servant has struck down both lions and bears, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, for he has defied the armies of the living God. David says that I'm a warrior, and I've been doing this for a long time. David killed lions. David killed bears. So, I didn't do that right. Who's another warrior that killed a lion and the Spirit of God was with him? Samson. Yeah, Samson was. In Judges 14, you see verse number 6, the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and he tore the lion in pieces. David killed lions and bears. I don't know if you all picked up on it. It took me a while to pick up on it, but like last month, there was something going around on the internet talking about could 100 men kill a gorilla or beat a gorilla or something like that. I don't know the answer to that, but I know what David would say. David would say, 100? What do you need 100 for? That's the kind of guy David is. David has powers that are similar to Samson because God is with him. Everything that he went out to do, he did. And so just real quick, I want to do a slight comparison of him and Samson. Both of them were supposed to help save the Philistines. So if David is going to become king, one of the things he has to do is protect the people. Samson was a judge. His job was to deliver the people from their oppressors. And at the time, it was the Philistines. So his parents received this from an angel. For behold, you shall conceive, Samson that is, for behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to save Israel from the hands of the Philistines. I would dare say that in the life of Samson, he didn't accomplish this goal. When you look at what we have about Samson, he does defeat the Philistines. Some. But it's usually always in response to something self-serving. It's revenge. It's I was slighted. But it never was I'm saving Israel. But if you look at David, in 1 Samuel 18, it says, then the commanders of the Philistines came out to battle. As often as they came out, David had more success than all the servants of Saul, so that his name was highly esteemed. And you'll remember they chanted, Saul has killed his thousands and David his 10,000s. David continued on fighting against the Philistines, working to liberate the Israelites from their oppressors. And he did this all his days, so much so that his son Solomon pretty much had a peaceful reign, pretty much, because of the work that he put in. David was doing the work to save. He's using his power as a warrior for the people. This is one of his major gifts, to be a warrior. He is a warrior so much that I think there comes a point in time to where the idea of taking life is of very small consequence to David. And we'll actually get there. We'll actually show up to where David and the idea of taking the life, he's just kind of like, okay, we'll kill him. But how did he get there? Because he was constantly on the warpath. When he was with the Philistines, when David is running from Saul and he goes and joins with the Philistines think that he's actually killing Israelites. He's not. And Les covered this a couple of weeks ago. This passage is basically saying that David would go and fight against the Geshurites, the Girzites, and the Amalekites. These are four nations, or three nations, or groups of people. Now, if you go back to Joshua, these are the groups that they didn't remove from the land. They were supposed to, but they didn't. Here's David. David's doing mop-up duty. Notice what the text says, verse number 9. And David would strike the land and would leave neither man nor woman alive, but take away the sheep, the oxen, the donkey, the camels, the garments, and come back to Achish. When Achish asked, where have you made a raid? Oh, goodness. Today, David would say, against the Negev of Judah, against the Negev of the Jerahmeelites, and against the Negev of the Kenites. And David would leave neither man nor woman alive to bring news to Gath, thinking, lest they should tell about us and say, David has done. And it says, such was his custom while he lived in the country of the Philistines. David took life, man, woman, child. That's what he did. David's a warrior. This is a really big part of his character. And like I said, this is something that is going to become an Achilles for him. Why do I share this? Sometimes your blessings, if left unchecked, can become a curse. Suppose that you are very articulate. That can go to your head. Suppose that you are a man of war. Well, taking a life can become a small thing. Suppose that you're used to being the person up front. That can become an anchor for you as well. There's so many things that, as our strength, can also be our weakness. And so I want us to be cognizant of that as well. God has blessed us with so much. But sometimes that blessing can become a curse as well. Does that make sense? And in David's case, we'll see in a couple of cases to where it does. Because at a certain point, at least where I am in my journey right now, I think life becomes really cheap for David at a certain point. I think it becomes very cheap. Yet this is the gift that he was given. He's a warrior. This is from God. And yet, if left uncontrolled, it can doom us. The other thing David was gifted with was leading the people. One of the things that Samson was supposed to do was lead the people. If you read at the beginning of Judges, one of the things they were supposed to do was save the people. But then verse 17, it says, they, the people, did not listen to the judges, which implies not only were the judges saving people, but they were also instructing them on what to do. And what you will find is nowhere in the story of Samson will you find him giving spiritual advice to anybody. But when you think about David, David is the one that brings the Ark of the Covenant back. He says, for we did not seek it in the days of Saul. He's the one that has the idea of, you know what, let's build a temple. And he makes the preparations for it. And nowhere will you find stories about idolatry under David's rule. You'll hear it in other kings, but you don't hear about it in David. David is leading the people and not just simply being the king. And so that's one of the things that we see about David. So as we conclude, this situation that David runs and finds himself into, he didn't ask for it. There was a need that arose. He was identified by someone else as being capable of filling the job because of who he was, how he lived, and someone saw it. And what they said about him was, I know a guy. And the question on the table is what do people say about me? When the job or the need arises, do they say, how about David? Or am I the last person they think about? And in some cases, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to tell you, Ross, you don't want me helping with the finances. You don't. But in some cases, you just might want me on that hill. But am I prepared? Have I demonstrated the use of the blessings God has given us? I pray that we will take evaluation of what has he blessed me with? And then truly assess, am I using it? And am I using it in a way that magnifies God and his kingdom? Thank you. We'll see you next week if the Lord wills.